In the next set of lessons, I'm going to show you how you can set up your Vagrant Virtualbox.
This video is brought to you by EpiPies Academy.
And so all of this is coming up, and the box that we're going to be setting up is a Scotch box, and it contains PHP 5.6. It's got Ruby, Vim, Git, its ability to curl, GD, Composer, Beanstalk, Node, NPM, and a whole lot of amazing, really cool features. In order to set this up, we also need to download Vagrant, and as mentioned before, Vagrant essentially is the tool that helps us build the development environments. So it allows us to run virtual machine and gives us the configuration to run that Virtualbox. So essentially the development environment is contained within Vagrant. We can configure Vagrant and we can initiate and create the box really easily with Vagrant. And basically, if you've got the box configuration and all of that information that's needed for the box, it's essentially easy to reproduce, and it also makes it a portable work environment. And so this is really the best outcome because you can customize the box to match your own server environment, and when you're creating your local environment, you can make sure that you have the same options that you do have on your server. And if you're working on a team, then everyone can reproduce that same server environment within Vagrant and have it up and running on their local machines. So to have the best consistency with your actual server environment. So Vagrant is truly an amazing application, and once you start using it, you're going to be wowed at how easy it is to use, and it's going to give you a whole lot of power in order to reproduce these development environments really easily. And then the other thing that we do need to install on our systems is a Virtualbox. So essentially what Virtualbox does is it allows you to create a virtual system or run an operating system within your own operating system. And you can mimic any operating system. So if you've got a Windows machine, you can install another Windows, and so on and so on. So, or you could install a Linux box within your Windows machine, and then you just run the Virtualbox, and you can get access to any of your OSs that you've installed. And the idea is that along with Vagrant, so Vagrant brings the box information and sets it up and configures it within Virtualbox, so you don't have to actually worry about opening up Virtualbox. You just need to have it downloaded and installed on your machine. So let's pop over to the web browser and go over to Virtualbox. And as you can see, there's a number of different platforms that are available for Virtualbox. So currently it's 5.118. So select the operating system that you're on and select the correct platform. So I've got Windows, OS X, Linux, and Solaris. So I'm on a Windows machine, so I would be selecting Windows. And again, the URL is virtualbox.org/wiki/downloads. So this is a free download, and it's an Oracle product, and it's a very popular way to run a virtual system on your own system. And they also do have the older virtual boxes as well. So sometimes you might run into issues with compatibility between the different applications. So you might need a particular version of a Virtualbox, which in this case, I think that you should be okay with running the latest versions of Vagrant and Virtualbox, but in some cases you might be installing one and then you might wait to install another one, and so on. So in that way, you need to make sure that you've got compatibility across the different applications. So I'm going to go ahead and download the Virtualbox for Windows. And next, we need to also install a few other applications in order to get going on our systems. So the other application that we need is Vagrant. And again, Vagrant is available for Windows. It's available for Mac OS X. So you select your operating system and download the version that you actually want to use for your platform. And then once you've downloaded those, we just need to do a quick install. And then also if you don't have Git installed or if you're not familiar with Git. So what Git does is, and again, I'm on a Windows machine, so your link will be different if you're actually trying to download it for a Mac OS X, but because I'm on a Windows machine, I'm over at the Windows link, which is git-scm.com download, and that's the link to download the Git repository. And you will need Git within your system because we're going to be accessing Git repository, which is the Scotch box, and pulling that down into our local system in order to run Vagrant and get our Virtualbox up and running. So these are the 3 essential components that you need to have installed and running on your computer in order to be able to run the application. And with Git, so there's a different link here for Macs, so you just go over to the Mac, and there's also some information on how to get started and installing Git and so on. So it's relatively easy and straightforward. And once we've got Git installed, we can open up a terminal and we can navigate to where we want to do the install, and we can do a quick check to see if Git is installed. So we can do git -- version. So just like this, -- version, just to make sure that we do have Git installed on our system. And if we do have Git installed, then we're going to get a response and we're going to get a version of Git that's installed on our system. So make sure that you do have Git installed, and that's how you make sure that you do have Git installed. And again, it's a really easy install, so you just go do the download and you can click essentially next, next, next within the install. So just the default installation is good to run this application. So once you've got your Virtualbox downloaded, you can go and run the system. And so this is going to install Virtualbox. And so it tells you what version, and then it also tells you where it's installing Virtualbox and creating, registering and proceed now. So essentially it's pretty straightforward. It can just be a very basic default install of Virtualbox. It's also a pretty lengthy install, so it does take some time to do the full installation of Virtualbox. And the same thing for Vagrant. So once you've installed Virtualbox, open up that download of Vagrant. So that's the Vagrant download there. And you can go ahead and run that install. And so this is from HashiCorp, that's the maker of Vagrant. And this, again, you could just do the default configuration for Vagrant, so default location for it, and just do the full install of it. And once you've got both of these installed, you are ready to go, and then just open up a terminal. If you don't have a terminal on your system, which you should have a way to access a terminal, I believe you get a terminal with Git as well. So you can open up the Git terminal. So I've got my terminal opened up here, and I'm navigated to my directory. In order to navigate and change directories, we use CD. So here the first one I'm doing is because my folder that I wanted to install the Virtualbox on is on my K drive, so I navigate over to K. It's within another folder called Websites, another folder called Box, and that's where I actually want to do the install. So this is where my path is to do the install, and I'm all ready to go to the next step, and that's actually do the installation. So once you've got the Vagrant set up, you've got Oracle set up, and Git set up on your system, then you're ready to move to the next step. And that's coming up in the next lesson, where we do the install, where we pull that box down, that Vagrant box down from Git, and we do the install of it, and then we just run the box, and you're going to see how easy it is to get this up and running and have this Virtualbox up and running. So that's all coming up in the next set of lessons.